All right, part three, coming from the kiddie section at Barnes and Noble. This is Wordsworth.
It is not to be thought of. Generally, this poem's about so so Wordsworth was like British, and apparently he really liked Britain and all the things that it did. So this one's basically him congratulating Britain for being so wonderful, but also saying that it needs to keep going and being as great as it used to be because it's losing it a little. So we'll just go by line. It is not to be thought of that the flood's capitalized, so we figured that's important.
An allusion to something.
It could be an allusion to like Noah and the ark and the flood, but also a flood is kind of something that takes out everything and wipes everything clean. So, um, and then he says the flood of British freedom, which is like maybe the British freedom like wiped out everything. He has a caesura after freedom, which kind of wants people to let that settle in. And then which to the open sea, which I guess a river flows into the sea. So
yeah, well, Britain's obviously surrounded by ocean and water, so that's very relevant to the topic.
And like yeah, rivers flow into the ocean is like an extended metaphor of the world's praise from dark antiquity. We know that Wordsworth believed that the world was alive, and he was really when they're like no okay, not transcendental, but the one before that. Okay, well, he spurned like the romanticist of writing, and he believed that people should be out in nature more. So yeah, by saying the world's praise, he's saying like the world is alive and things like that. And then from dark antiquity, antiquity was the ancient past or a period before the Middle Ages. It was considered a great period. So I guess he's saying that the time when like Britain was made, it was like a great time. Hath flowed with pomp of waters unwithstood. So pomp, that's the wrong thing. Okay, pomp means like boastfulness or vanity, and I guess unwithstood is like it's not it can push through anything, so it's not stopped. It's also in quotes.
Yeah, and we couldn't find anything online that would be anything important with the quotes.
So. Yeah, it's not quoting anything from any. It's not any quotes or thing, but I guess maybe.
So maybe he's just trying to bring more importance to it, or wants the reader to stop and think about how that could be more important or visualize something.
Or maybe maybe he wants them to expect they've heard it before, like he's quoting something, maybe they want them to think about it, or even that he wants people to say that, like with pomp of waters unwithstood, he wants people to see that as like a symbol. Or roused though it be full often to a mood, unwithstood and mood is a visual rhyme. Often roused though it be often to a mood could be like it. What do you think?
What? Roused?
Roused though it be full often to mood. So I guess it's like there's a certain way that people act, or Britain act. Yeah, it's like a way that a Briton always acts, and it's like a way it does things.
Yeah.
Which spurns the check of salutary bands.
And we looked up salutary, which is like an unexpected beneficial thing that makes you better in the long run, and but this is saying which spurns the check of salutary bands, and spurns means reject, so therefore this is like which rejects the check of something positive. So this sentence kind of has a little more negative tone to it.
Yeah. That this most famous stream in bogs and sands. So streams capitalized. He capitalizes a lot of things that are to do with water. So the whole poem is like the theme of water and ocean comes back a lot.
Yep.
In bogs and sands, I guess maybe that's saying that like a lot of England could we say is made of bogs and sands.
But that's not, the bogs isn't a very positive word. It's kind of something that's more swampy and dead. But sands kind of brings it back, because sands can be like something positive. And again, Britain's surrounded by water, so there's going to be a lot of beaches.
Okay, and then it's saying the stream should perish, that the most famous stream in bogs and sands should perish. So he's saying that people don't really realize that all this stuff could go so easily. Like it could easily be gone. There's a caesura after that, so the should perish. He really like sections that out. And to evil and to good. So I was looking at that, and I think it's usually for good and evil. And I'm maybe that's just the way he wanted to say, but he kind of swaps it around. And he does that a lot throughout the poem. To be lost forever. So should perish and be lost forever at the beginning of the lines, and they're both ended with a caesura. So they're like really dark and kind of scary sounding.
And then the next is in our halls is hung armory of the invincible knights of old. So this is kind of an imagery of old England with the armory of the invincible knights, because England was involved with the Middle Ages, obviously, and the knights and everything like that. And there's halls, like, and castles and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. There's alliteration, halls is hung as well, so he makes this sound really poetic, I guess. We must be free or die who speak the tongue. There's a synecdoche in there with the tongue. He's making the whole English language or speak the words of like how Britain used to be. That Shakespeare spake. So yeah, the words that Shakespeare said. The faith and morals hold which Milton held. Shakespeare and Milton were both very respected English writers or poets. He put some assonance in Shakespeare spake, which is like also an old way that they used to say like spoken.
Yeah.
So that's what Shakespeare used to. I guess he would write that.
Yeah, and then he brings in Milton again, and in my poem he talked about Milton. So obviously, Wordsworth was affected by Milton greatly, and they had common viewpoints on England and the times that they lived in, or they lived at different times, but I guess they had kind of similar thought process.
In everything we are sprung, that's interesting because based on the rest of the line, it should be past tense, and everything we have sprung. But I think Wordsworth wanted to point out that this is happening like constantly, and it's always happening now, and it doesn't stop happening. So it still is, with like things are still growing and moving along. And that's kind of his Wordsworth philosophy, that things are springing from the ground and growing and like keeping going and stuff like that. And the last line of Earth's first blood have titles manifold. So he personifies the earth again. And manifold means there's many kinds, so there's a lot of ways that people see England, but there's just
yeah,
and it's come from the earth, the very basis where it used to come from.
It's a great poem.
Yeah, it's
All
pretty.
right, sweet.